My name is Joshua, and I am the Tribune. It's extremely imperative to understand that God has a test for His children and a booby trap for imposters when it comes to His preparation for your purpose. Now, what is this test and booby trap that I speak of? Well, what it is you need to understand that you have to prepare for purpose. You have to prepare for your preparation with God. Now, most people don't even talk about this, and it's very rare because it's a secret. Because most of the time you have to find this out on your journey with God by yourself. But in this message, He's charged me and commanded me to make sure to warn you guys so you can actually have some kind of insight on His character so that you can do it faster than most people can. So what does it mean when I say that you have to prepare for your preparation with God? Well, what I mean by that is when God separates you from everything and He starts telling you that He needs you to prepare for your purpose. What most people do is they take that and say, oh, so I'm going to do what I already know. I'm going to take my mind and take my heart, take my spirit as it is, and I'm going to start preparing what I know God is speaking to me about in the way that I know how to do it with the knowledge and with the experience that I already have. And I don't need to really think too much about dumping any kind of wisdom from God into me first for a long period of time before I prepare with Him. Most people just look at the actual blueprints that He is talking to you about, that He wants to prepare for your purpose. But what God likes to do is He really, really needs you to sit with Him for an extended season, a long period of time. And what He wants to do is He wants to start training you of how to hear His voice no matter what. So what He does is He will tell you a general concept or the general plan for your purpose. But then what He expects is for you to sit with Him and let Him teach you very unique principles that don't even have to do necessarily with what He's speaking to you about directly. He wants to dump in principles of His choosing that you wouldn't think about, that you would need for what He's talking to you about. Now, how does He do this? What He does is He guides you every single step and He dumps into you. Because something you have to remember is that you can only output what you have put inside of you and what you know, what He's taught you. So when we're talking about God's purpose, you have to understand, even if He tells you something normal that a lot of people are doing, He is thinking on such a high level that if you take just your experience, and even if you've had a lot of experience in these areas, let's say you're a master in this craft that I'm talking about and that God's talking about for you. It doesn't matter because you could be a master in the craft according to humans and be a fool according to God in that craft. So what He needs to do is He needs to pour into you very unique principles so that you can take those principles and work with Him on the level that He wants to work with you on. Now, something about God is He refuses to do anything below His standards. So, if you do not do this, then He will not work with you. This is something you really have to understand. Now, how is this a test for believers who want to be in purpose with God? This is a test because if you are not willing to sit with God and let Him dump into you in humility and sit under His teaching, then it shows that you have some heart issues to work with because you are prideful, because you think you have what you need and you aren't willing to sit with Him for an extended period of time and a long season so that He can dump into you and that He can actually show you, these are the principles that I'm going to need you to work with when you're building my stuff, so that your stuff is the best stuff in the world history. So this is a test for his children because it tests if you're really willing to listen to God for your purpose. Because if you cannot listen to God when you're preparing for his preparation, then you cannot listen to God during the preparation itself, when you're actually laying down the real blueprints for his assignment for your life. And you definitely won't be able to listen to him when he's actually carrying out your assignment in real time. So this is how he starts training his children, and it's a test to see, are you going to sit under him even before the preparation? Because it's a very humbling thing to even say, I don't even know how to prepare what you are talking to me about, even though right now it sounds normal. It sounds like I can do it because I have some kind of experience and I have some kind of knowledge about this thing, so I can do it. It's a very humbling thing to say, I don't even know that. I don't know that for sure. I'm going to make sure that I understand what kind of level you're talking about. So that's why it's a test for his children. Now, it's a booby trap now for imposters for purpose. And when I talk about purpose imposters, what I'm talking about is people who say they want to work with God and say they want to go into purpose, and they say they're working with God, but they're really not. And they don't go through this process. They won't even last 2 seconds in this process. Because it's God's vetting process to get to preparation. And these people who are purpose imposters don't have patience. They just want to look good. They want to say they're working with God. They want to think they're doing God's work, but they're not. So they'll just totally burn out even before. They won't even be able to really prepare. And if they try, they'll just be preparing regular stuff. And God will say, well, you're just with everybody else. And everybody will know that you're not working with me because it's just the same as everybody else. Now, it's very important to understand then what God's agenda is when he is expecting you to prepare for his preparation. He is expecting you to trust him, to dump principles in your spirit that you would never expect that you would need for your journey. This is crucial because if you come into this thinking that you're going to know the principles that he's going to need you to understand in order to do his purpose, then you won't be able to even hear him on what he's telling you in the preparation stage. You won't even be able to do it. And there's something very important. How do you know that God is dumping principles into you and preparing you to prepare for his purpose? Preparing you to actually lay down the literal blueprints for your purpose. Well, he's giving you, how you know is he's giving you principles that don't come from what you think they would come from. And on top of that, you don't know where you would need these principles and how you're even supposed to use them. If God is giving you principles and you could just take one thing and just start going, then those are not the principles. What I'm talking about is God dumping into you things that they're so awesome and so unique that really don't even look like they should be going and fitting with what he's been talking to you about. They're so unique that you really have to actually wait for him to explain to you how to use the principles. Now, the Holy Spirit will guide you through this process. The Holy Spirit will show you, now I want you to go here, and I want you to actually feed on this thing. You need to feed on this for as long as I tell you, and you need to eat it and let it nourish your spirit. Become this thing. And then you need to move to the next thing. He will guide you through it. And make sure you really don't try to think you're done before you're done. God will tell you when you're done with this process. And don't try to rush it. Because you cannot rush this. Because if you rush this process, it means you're not really marinating on the principles that he's actually giving you just to feed on, which means that you will not be that thing. You won't have those principles actually incorporated into your system. Because when he's going to work with you and actually prepare the blueprints, you're going to need those things to actually be a part of your spirit, so you don't have to really think about these things. It's going to have to be second nature, these principles that he's teaching you. This is super important to understand, because these principles should become like your organs. Your physical organs, they should be like that. You don't have to try to breathe. You just breathe. Your heart beats by itself. Your kidneys work by themselves if you're healthy. This is God's agenda, even for purpose and for the principles that he's going to give you. So now, what happens if you don't go through this process? What happens if you say, I don't want to do this? Well, it's very simple. You cannot really do your preparation properly. Now, somebody who has a heart for God, who doesn't understand that you have to do this, that you have to go through this process of preparing to prepare for your purpose, then he will just totally discourage you. He will make sure you know that you cannot prepare exactly what he's talking about without going through the preparation process to prepare for your purpose with God. He will just discourage you. He will let you prepare all the things you want, and at the end of it, he'll throw it in the trash. And what does it look like when God throws something in the trash? I have to actually be very specific about this. He makes it so that you actually know in your spirit, this is not good enough. This is not what God was really talking about. No matter how much you try to tell yourself that it is and that God's done it and this is exactly what he was supposed to prepare, then it doesn't matter, because he will just make sure your spirit is not satisfied. This is how he does it with somebody who really has a heart for him and his purpose, but doesn't understand that they need to go through the process. And this is why I'm explaining this process, preparing for preparation with God, so that you can actually skip this part of really just spinning your wheels on and just running on a hamster wheel. And God's sending you right back to this place that I'm talking about right now, where you need to prepare for his preparation. Now, it's really important for me to specify that God's agenda for your purpose is so high. It's extremely high. Higher than you can think about on your own, which means that the preparation process will be higher and different than you think it's going to be. It's not going to be cliche. It's not going to be a cliche preparation process. Which means that you are going to have to think much higher than you are thinking right now. And it's crucial, because you're going to need God's power to do even the preparation. You are not going to be operating in your own power even to prepare God's purpose. This is crucial. Because if you think you're going to be operating in your own power, then you will not understand that you need this, what I'm saying right now, and maybe you don't even think you really need to prepare. That would be an even crazier thing. But you really won't know that you need to prepare for the preparation process because you think that you're working in your own power. So you need God's power, which means that you need him to fill you up with his principles so that you can output with him on his level. So really you should look at it as nourishing yourself for a long, extended period of time. Because after he's done preparing you for the preparation process, then that time is done and you need to actually work on the blueprints, which means you are actually outpouring everything that he's actually placed inside of you. And remember, you can only outpour what is you filled yourself up with. So you should really be making sure to ask God, God, what do you want me to fill myself up with you? Please direct me on this. Because I don't even know where to go. I don't know where to look. Once you come to him in humility like this, he will actually come and meet you and show you. And then you will get filled up with his power and his strength and his wisdom. You will need God's wisdom to even prepare for your purpose. Now, what does this really look like in practical terms? God will take you. You need to first start way back, as far back as you can remember in your childhood. It's really important. You need to meticulously dissect every single thing you even cared about and didn't like with God. And you need to dive into each area and make sure you understand exactly how and why you thought how you thought in your purest form as a child, because that's when you were closest to God and you just came out of being with his Spirit. It was fresh. Now, yes, I'm not saying that now you're a mature Christian but still you're closer to God when you were a child and you were a baby and you were a more mature Christian. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you were very pure as a child and God made it like that so you can then go study yourself. And you need to meticulously go through what he wants to teach you about yourself and the principles that your spirit is connected to that have nothing to do with what you think he's asking you to do right now. This is where the process starts. You need to thoroughly understand yourself. And through that, you understand God and he explains his purpose for you and his will over your life. And through the process of doing that, you get extreme power because you're getting God's power. Because you're going to need God's power to do his purpose. There is something extremely important for me to mention right now. God has frameworks set up that are very unique and tailored to you. They are frameworks for your purpose preparation and the carrying out and implementation of the blueprints he gave you in the preparation stages. These are frameworks that he's given for you to operate in. But in order to operate in these frameworks, you need to understand the principles. Something God does that is so magnificent is he will actually set things up even before you were born. Set people in place, set situations in order so that by the time you get to where you need to get to, you can step into a framework that you didn't even know existed and that nobody even knew existed. This framework is a facilitation of his principles for you. This is how he teaches you. So what he does is he teaches you in advance how to operate in the principles that he wants you to prepare for the framework that he has already put in place long before you're even on earth. And I'm talking in literal terms. This isn't even spiritual. This is literal frameworks that he has put into place for you so you can facilitate your giftings and your talents and his power how he wants it facilitated. But you won't even know those things exist unless you actually fill yourself up with the principles that he is ordering you to fill yourself up with. So really, you shouldn't be just running into preparation, how you think you should do it and how it seems so obvious. Of course, I would do this step A, this step B, and this step C. And of course, that's God's preparation because that's how you prepare things. No. In fact, I'm going to start with numbers. God doesn't even want to start with letters. I'm going to numbers. You have to go 1 to 100 first. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, blah, blah, blah. And it's going to keep going. And then after 100, God has 100A. Then after that, you think then 100A and then 100B. No, it's not that. Then you go back to 1 in another sector, and then you go all the way to 75, not 100 this time, and then it's 75B. So this is how it works. And once you have 100A, 75B, 30C, 1005, whatever, then you have all the principles inside of you, and now you can actually lay out his blueprints with him. Now, what is the purpose of this, really? What's the purpose of preparing for the preparation of your purpose? It gets you in the state of constantly hearing God and make sure that you know you don't know how to do it. Not even the obvious stuff. You don't know the obvious stuff. You think it's obvious and it looks straightforward. It's not straightforward. Unless you're doing something subpar. If you're doing what everybody else is doing, then yeah, go do some straightforward stuff. But if you're doing great work with God, then it's not going to be straightforward. So it's crucial to listen to God through the process. This is why he does this. It's right away him saying, you don't know anything. You don't know how to prepare even. Stop doing your preparation how you think. You don't know how to do it at all. Listen to me, even to prepare. This gets your ear very, very sharp so you can listen to the Holy Spirit. It gets your muscles, your spiritual muscles, very strong. So that when he's actually preparing his blueprints, he doesn't have to worry about if you can hear him or not. Because at that stage, he's actually laying the actual things down. And they're already super complicated because you've never seen them before. Nobody's ever seen them before. And he's the only one who knows how to do it. And he has a specific order. This is another thing he teaches you. He has a specific order for everything. And he expects and demands that you follow his order, how he wants it done. You cannot jump wherever you want to jump and get even the preparation done. So everything boils down to God teaching you that you don't know and that you need him at all times to make sure that you're in line with what he wants for the mission. Now, you might ask, how long does this take? My answer to you would be, as long as God says it takes. It's very simple. You will not know how long this takes. And it really doesn't matter how long it takes. Because you want God's quality, right? I hope so. So if you want God's quality, it doesn't matter how long it takes. One thing I can tell you is it's not 2 seconds. Especially if he just took you out of something, he ripped you out of a lifestyle that you really shouldn't be living, and he places you down and says, listen, it's time to get down to my purpose. Especially then you need to first get yourself in order. While you're getting yourself in order, you're also listening to how he wants you to prepare for your preparation process. This is how he thinks. So you shouldn't be thinking how long. You should be thinking, what next? God will lead you to exactly what he wants you to look at. And remember, the biggest thing in this is understanding that you don't have to be doing something in order to be preparing something. That's really not, you don't have to be using your hands and actually literally laying down a blueprint in order to say, I'm preparing with God. Impatient people never understand this. And people with anxiety also have a seriously hard time understanding this principle, and that's why they need God. And people without anxiety or without any kind of impatience, they even have a problem with it. So we all need God. But what it is filling yourself up. You have to fill yourself up first. This is what this message is about. Filling yourself up with God, letting God actually dump into you. It's extremely important, guys. You cannot output anything without Him filling you. It's just as important as actually laying down the blueprints, is filling yourself up. I don't do anything before I fill myself up. Just as much as it would be complete lunacy to think you're going to drive across the country on an empty tank of gas, it's just as stupid to think that you're going to do God's preparation for your purpose without filling yourself up with His ordered principles that are very unique, that you don't even know where to even look. Lastly, I'll say this. God is very concerned that you understand how He speaks to you, how He guides you, how He directs you. And this is how He starts doing it. And it's not just about Him correcting your personality and correcting your character and correcting your spirit for things that are immoral or hateful or prideful. It's not just that kind of speaking. It's He wants to train you of how to hear His voice when He's actually creating with you and preparing with you and making sure that you are ready to actually go forth and implement your purpose in life. He is extremely concerned about this. So this process He shows you how He's going to speak to you for your preparation. This is why filling yourself up and Him giving you orders of how to fill yourself up, you learn how He speaks because He confirms how He wants you filled up. Then you take those principles that He's filled you up with, and you take your memory and your experience with hearing His voice and Him confirming Himself to you, and you take that into actually laying down the blueprints. You must eat. And I would argue that you will actually have more enjoyment eating than you do actually laying down the blueprints necessarily, because you are actually nourishing yourself. And ultimately what God actually wants to establish with you is during your preparation stage for your purpose, when you're actually laying down the actual blueprints, in His resting parts where He orders rest, your rest should be filling yourself up with the things I'm talking about right now. Because He's not just going to have you prepare, and you just go and go and go, and you just don't, there's no breaks, there's nothing. That's not what He does. He gives you periods of rest. And if you don't know what to do with your rest periods, then you are going to peter out very fast. So this is the next level. He is also training you of how to fill yourself up with what He orders to prepare for your next outpouring of preparation. And He will show you where He wants you to eat from. He will show you what spiritual foods and what food in general that you are supposed to feed on for your spirit. It's custom. This is a custom plate. It's a custom banquet for you. This is what this is. And I'm not talking just about reading the Bible and watching messages and actually having Bible study. That's not what I'm talking about at all. You should be filling yourself up with spiritual things like the Word and messages as a base. What I'm talking about is things that you would say, wait, God, You want me to go back in my childhood and actually study a cartoon that I used to love, and you want to give me principles out of that? You actually want me to spend the whole day doing that? The whole week? The whole month? Really? Yes, that's what he wants. These are the kind of things I'm talking about. And you have to understand that these are the things that he wants to do with you to make sure he's dumping into you. He is the chef. It's his ingredients, not yours, not mine, and not anybody's. He's the only one who knows his ingredients. And so you have to go to him and say, God, what kind of ingredients do you need me to fill myself up with so that when I come out of the oven, I am exactly what you want me to be? And no, it's not something typical or usual or, oh, I know flour goes in this, so no, flour doesn't go in this. God's going to make something better with a different ingredient. This is what I mean by this. So please don't take this as this is now, I need to just fill myself up with just Bible studies, just messages, just Christian things. What I'm saying is that you need to fill yourself up with exactly what he tells you to, and it will be custom fit for you. Custom tailored so that you can prepare for God's purpose in a custom way, because your purpose is custom. It's a tailored fit for you. So I hope this message really encourages you to know how to feed on God's principles to prepare for your preparation of your purpose. And I hope it makes the process a lot easier and faster. Because it should. This is what God wants for you. So go and prepare for God's preparation process. Fill yourself up and eat. Hail Jehovah.